Rodrigo and Booty have been, for several years now that I've known them, they have been key people in the work that I've been doing with Take Heart Publications, publishing A Course of Love, publishing several more books that coming through Sebastian, another book that's come through a wonderful woman in Marietta in Hungary, and more coming through. And I could not do it without significant help. And they have provided not only significant help, but inspiration and fully energetically there with what Take Heart is doing. When I first knew them, they were living in Mongolia. And then a wonderful thing happened because they were planning on going back to, Rodrigo's from Brazil, and they were planning on going back to Brazil to see his mom, and also for Booty to get renew her green card in Brazil. And they had the flight all picked out in what was it, December of 2019.
Yeah.
And then her parents said, no, don't go now. We know we need you a little bit. Put it off. So they did that. They put it off for another month. And then after the flight was all scheduled for January of 2020, again the parent says, no, don't go now. So they postponed the trip yet another month to his birthday, which is February 28th. And that was 2020. And we know what happened in 2020, the early part of 2020. So they took off, very happily flying to Brazil, and Mongolia absolutely shut the doors. When you couldn't get in at all. and so there they were at a B&B in Brazil. But this is Divine Mother's play, because Rodrigo is from Brazil, and Rodrigo had been teaching meditation at age 17. 17, is that right?
Yeah.
And also then he's an engineer. He's an aeronautical engineer by training. So there was that part of his career. And then he had a vision about what his life would be like as in that career as an aeronautical engineer, and it wasn't a happy one. So he sold everything and dedicated his life to the spiritual side of him. And he ended up teaching in Europe and Asia for decades. And then he discovered A Course in Miracles, and after that he discovered A Course of Love, and we got in touch and we just hit it off. And so there it is. I'm so happy to have you here, both of you.
We are so happy to be here. And it's an honor for us that you make this choice to be present here this evening. I'm sure there would be wonderful things for you to do out there, and you chose to come here to this Unity Church. And we would like to show also our appreciation for the Unity Church in America. It has played a significant role in expanding, awakening consciousness here in North America. We don't have such a thing in other places, as far as I know. But here we have, and I was there in the library, seeing the diversity of books on the shelves. All kinds of religions, walks of life, and New Age stuff, and all kinds of things there. So this inclusivity, this understanding that out beyond the right and wrong, that is that field where we meet just to share in unity who we are and our present moment experiences, rather than doctrines, rather than dogmas, rather than beliefs in what is right, what is not, what is this, what's that. This only divides us. That we might personally subscribe to a particular stream of thought, to a wisdom tradition, that's fine. If you like it, it's good, it's helping you. Keep it. But don't let this be a source of disunity in our lives, or judgment against those who are not following the stuff or the book or the thing that we are. And I also want to show my wife who is here, our appreciation for Glenn and for Murphy, who are at the helm of Take Heart Publications, publishing wonderful books that bring unity. They are all about oneness, about unity again. One of these books is A Course of Love, from which I drew the inspiration to share what is going to be shared. And I want to make it clear that I don't feel this is a presentation, much less a lecture or a talk. I came here just to share who I am, just to share the experiences that were meaningful to me, the teachings that touched my heart, with the full awareness that not necessarily are they going to be the ones that will touch your hearts, or I don't have a method or a 1, 2, 3 step to transform feelings into love. I can just share from my direct experience, and what resonates with you, welcome. And if something doesn't, that's no problem, just forget it. And stick to your experience, what is valuable to you, what is meaningful to you, what is bringing transformation in your lives. That's the good thing for you. Now, maybe it will change after some time, as it has changed in my life multiple times. As we change within different styles of wisdom traditions, different streams of thought may become more meaningful than others. And this will change throughout our path. And as Glenn was mentioning, Divine Mother, or you can put it however you like God or the Divine Intelligence or the Oneness Intelligence, orchestrates very interesting things in our lives if we are willing to listen. And one of these moments in which my life changed completely, it was thanks to listening to feelings. And as Glenn already started telling this story, what happened when I was 23 years old? I was in a dream, a lucid dream. It means those that when your body is lying on the bed at night, you somehow regain awareness of yourself. And so I saw myself out there in this dream world. And I saw my mother, like resembling my physical mother, who then called me by name, Rodrigo, would you like to come here? I want to show you something. And then I said, okay, let's see what it is that you want to show me. And I started following her. And as I followed her, her image started getting blurry, and I actually started seeing like a new world, like a new scene. And not only that, I started realizing that I was living at the age of 45. So I jumped in time, from 23 to 45 years of age. So in the dream, I became a 45-year-old man. And it was in the morning, and I was preparing to get out, to go to my job, to workplace. And I left home, I closed the door, I entered the car, I started driving. And what happened? I was fully living that life. It was as real as this moment now. Initially, I was only in my mind. So a lot of thoughts started coming while I was driving that car going to my workplace. So then in my mind, I started remembering several details about my life, like the place where I work, and the company, my career, and how prestigious a job I had, and how well off I had become, and I was kind of happy, The mind was telling me all these memories. Going to work, this and that. And then some other memories started coming, such as I remembered in the dream that I was already divorced, I had several relationship issues, and these kind of things. And then it went even further. I started feeling things. That's when things changed. So up to that point, in my mind, I would still say, yeah, that's a good life. Everything seems good. In my mind. However, when I started feeling my feelings, and still driving, a large avenue there and up there, and the feelings started coming, and I couldn't avoid them. They became increasingly intense. And those feelings were not good. I was sad. And I couldn't hide it from myself anymore. Initially, I was still thinking that, oh, yes, life is good. Yeah, but that sadness coming. Not only sadness, I was actually feeling I was pretty hollow from inside. Really hollow. Because I was living an empty life. And I started feeling miserable. So like feeling miserable. And then the thinking mind could no longer come up with memories of, no, but I work in this nice company, I have this nice job. No. The feelings were telling me, yeah, you are living an empty life. You are hollow. That's when these feelings became so intense, I couldn't bear it anymore. Still driving the car, I was almost like at the point of tearing up. And it became so intense and so crystal clear, the sadness, the misery of that life, that I snapped back to my physical body. I woke up in my bed, middle of the night, with an overwhelming feeling of, oh my gosh, I don't want to become this man. And the feeling was clearly telling me that there is another way. There are possibilities for me. If I'm willing enough, new doors would open, new possibilities would arise. And I really begged from the bottom of my heart, please give me a chance to get out of this life. And you know, as Glenn said, I was 23, working as an engineer. And in parallel, I did have a spiritual life. Well, I was reading spiritual stuff. I was even guiding meditation practices, organizing events. I was teaching, but I was teaching from here. In those days, I was a good teacher, like intellectually speaking. I could elaborate on the Bhagavad Gita and this quote here from this and that from that, and you talk. But I could say that those feelings brought me something that my thinking couldn't bring me. And I reached a new level of understanding about myself, about my life, my purpose here. And that is when I decided I was willing to change my life in a more radical way. And then what happened? Thanks to these feelings, I started listening to a new voice. And I knew that I could live a different life. And then new opportunities came those days. I met different people. Someone invited me to attend a workshop somewhere else there in Brazil. I met a new group of people. So, long story short, I ended up leaving my career at the age of 24 and then traveling to Nepal and to India, later to Mongolia, to Thailand, and traveled a lot all over Asia and in any other places. And I credited those initial feelings, the feelings I had in that dream, for the path I chose, which led me to be here now with you, with Glenn, with Matthew, with all of you. Yeah. And I'm beyond 45, I'm 51 now. So when I crossed the 45, I could really feel, oh, my life is really worth it. I'm happy. I'm happy with myself. And I still am. I'm very happy with my life. Yeah. Then what happens? The alchemy of feelings. So why this title, Alchemy of Feelings? Because feelings have knowledge, they have cognition embedded in them. Feelings can teach us what a large book would, after reading, a moment of deep feeling, connection to the heart, can open doors and can help us discover new dimensions about ourselves that perhaps will take years of studying and workshops and courses and classes and so on. So the courses are good. No? I'm not saying that they are not important. Books are good, reading and all this. However, I'm just emphasizing that at least in my life, bringing the feeling world to my awareness made a whole lot of difference. It added a depth to my human experience that otherwise I wouldn't have if I were to be only there in my mind, with the mindfulness, with the mind training here, mind training there. So listening to feelings became a key aspect of my spiritual path. And then I read this in A Course of Love. I'm going to share with you. This is in a chapter. It's that day 12. It's a section here of A Course of Love that's titled The 40 Days and 40 Nights. So on day 12, this chapter is titled The Spacious Self Joined in Relationship. So here in the beginning, paragraph 1, it's saying, now we listen to feelings. Now we listen to feelings and understand what they have to say to us. Now we listen with a new ear, the ear of the heart. Now we recognize that the thoughts that would censor our feelings, calling them selfish, uncaring, or judgmental, we examine and we realize it is our thoughts and not our feelings that are selfish, uncaring, or judgmental. We realize this because we realize the sacred space we have become. Space is italicized. Our space is the space of unity. It is the space of ease. Because thoughts are no longer allowed their rule. And this word space is italicized for a reason. Spaciousness, that's the nature of our feelings. We can't control our feelings. There was a time in my life I believed that I would be pure enough, holy enough, that I would only have beautiful feelings, only joy, only happiness, only compassion, and only the beautiful stuff. No, but that's not what happened. And as time passes, as we study here, study there, and teach, still, I still have sadness, anger, grief, worry, anxiety, I'm upset. But wait one moment, are these labels truly representative of what these feelings are? It's not. Our mind is going there to our feelings, taking the feelings and analyzing them, as if you are holding a piece. Oh, let me study this feeling here. And then the labels come, and then the judgment against feelings come. And then we even thought, I thought this once upon a time, I thought there are negative feelings, and positive feelings. I don't see this true anymore. This is not what I experienced. These feelings of sadness, that feeling of hollowness I was describing to you in the dream, oh my God, I thank those feelings for giving me guidance at a critical moment in my life in which still I had a choice at 23. So am I going to tell that those feelings were bad? Not at all. They always saved me. They brought me a new understanding of what my life was going to be. So they were wonderful feelings. Oh, how good it was for me to feel that sadness, that hollowness, that feeling of feeling miserable. There's nothing wrong with them. So there are no really negative feelings. And again I say we can't control our feelings. Also we could say the same for thoughts. We can't control our thoughts. But we can discover how to respond with certainty to each and every feeling that we feel, that we experience. To thoughts too. But I'm bringing awareness to the feeling realm, because usually they are not given proper attention. We talk a lot about mindfulness, but how about heartfulness? So these two things are one. So they seem to be separate things, the mind, the heart. But even in the past, ancient cultures, ancient peoples already realized they are one. The Chinese, for example, if you see something about Taoism, there is a character, Xin, like a X-I-M, like Xin. This means heart-mind, hyphenated, heart-mind. It is one thing. It's not one thing or the other. A course of love brought me this understanding, this new awareness of the unity between mind and heart, mindfulness and heartfulness, which A Course of Love calls wholeheartedness. So in wholeheartedness, we discover, or we come to know, that feelings are a helpful guide in our journey. But if the mind goes there to the feelings and starts again this process of studying, judging, analyzing them, we will miss the point. So that's why the subtitle of this sharing is the effortless transmutation of, for example, anger and pain, but any other feelings, into love. Because feelings, as A Course in Miracles made very clearly, everything arises either from love or from a call for love. It's either one thing or another. Those things that are already merged from love, they are already there. They are already gold. Feel them. Feelings of love, feelings of compassion, of generosity, kindness. And you name it, are beautiful things that we experience. But there are these feelings that they actually come from love, but as they go through the mind, as they go through our personality, our personal history, perhaps childhood things, they get changed into something that initially does not seem to be love. They seem to be calls for love. But as we bring awareness to such feelings, like sadness, the anger, the upset, the grief, the frustration, the disappointment, and so on. Feeling guilt. We discover that by simply let these feelings be felt in the loving awareness of presence. When I say presence, I'm talking about a consciousness that transcends thoughts and feelings, transcends our sensations, our sensory perceptions. That is that beyond the body, mind. That which has no name, like that, like that Christ consciousness, that unity consciousness, that lovingness, that aware presence, that is spacious enough to embrace everything. And this embrace is not a sterile like embrace. It's warm. It has a quality that will comparable to the philosopher's stone. Like the alchemist is searching for this stone that would transmute everything into gold, like lead into gold. So we have this philosopher's stone right here. It's our being, our self. Our true self, capital S self, if you will. That presence in us that knows of its eternity, its unity with everyone and everything. This is the presence I'm referring to. So all we need to do is simply allowing all feelings be brought to our heart, to the center of our being, to this that I'm saying, presence. Presence is simply being. Let me give you an example. Once I was in a flight, and I was coming back from Mongolia to Brazil, And that flight had several legs, several segments, one of which was a 14, almost 15-hour long flight from Doha, Qatar, to São Paulo, Brazil. Budi was next to me on the window seat, and a gentleman came. He was an Indian man. I like in India. I lived 4 years in India. I appreciate Indian culture. I studied Sanskrit and the classics, so I have an appreciation for India because he said I kind of have. This was 2-3 years ago. We were still in the pandemic times. Everyone was wearing masks. Now I had my mask. I even had a backup mask, no? Like that sense of duty and responsibility. Bring your mask, wear your mask, and I was there with my mask and Budi. This guy, as soon as the plane was taxiing, he removed his mask. And then there was already kind of, oh, you're not wearing the mask. Okay, I was still kind of feeling uneasy, but just liked. I thought he was going to put it back. The airplane took off, nothing. From time to time I would like look at it, no mask. I start feeling anxious and feeling like, your body starts like moving and starts like sometimes, even once I tried to look at him like this, he didn't pay attention, he was there. Ananda, but at least he was there like this. He didn't look at me, although I tried it. Because if he looked, I would say, how about the mask? Nothing. He was there blissfully unaware that I was not feeling good about this. But things start moving, and then I thought, well, let's watch a movie here. No? I started watching stuff and getting distracted. The feeling wouldn't go away. So even in the middle of the movie, still I would feel, oh my God, I'm not feeling good. This guy is not wearing a mask. But still, I mentioned this detail especially so that you realize that the mind has this tendency to tell the feelings, oh, okay, nudge it away. Like, okay, let me get distracted. Let me put a beautiful song, or let me let me watch a movie, so I don't need to pay attention to feelings that are not necessarily pleasant. But that's the trick the mind plays that sometimes prevents us from accessing a pool of wisdom, a source of wisdom, right there in our feelings. And so initially I got distracted with one stuff or another, but until he started sneezing, and really, then the feelings, no, now there was no more. I was really like feeling so uneasy. Then I started thinking, I'm going to call the flight attendant. Rather than trying to give him a lecture or a sermon on the need to wear a mask, I thought, I'm going to call the flight attendant. Then I started looking up to see the button there. But, in that moment, all the things I read, for example, in A Course of Help, I clearly sensed that I was not at peace. And whatever would come out of those reactions would not be good, probably. Again, we bring that emotion, that afflictive emotion, and it would probably, create a situation that wouldn't actually bring a peaceful solution, but rather complications. And so I stopped myself. And this moment, I really knew enough of distraction. I need to sit with my feelings. So I was no longer looking at the movie, nothing. I just closed my eyes, just stayed there, feeling the anger, the frustration that I was so careful with the mask, and he was, whatever. I'm putting words here, but at that moment it was just feeling, and the things come and they come and they come. And I started just being present to those feelings. So when I was present, when there was this spaciousness around those feelings, things naturally, like effortlessly, started changing. The feelings started morphing, transmuting into other kinds of feelings. Now I felt, for example, that perhaps I could gently talk to him, without emotion, without feeling triggered, but just out of kindness, talk to him. But then other feelings started coming, and these feelings started bringing thoughts that I didn't think. Like this thought that just they arise. One of such thoughts was a quote from A Course in Miracles. Someone sent me right one day before this trip. This kind of emails you get from friends that well-meaning people who keep sending thoughts, quotes, and things. And sometimes if you have time, it's fine, you read. I didn't pay much attention to that message, that email right then. I was preparing for this long trip. But when I was sitting, suddenly that message popped up with such clarity. And the message was so simple. It was just saying something like, recognize in every encounter you have a purpose. No one comes to your life by accident. And then I said, what if he's not here as an accident? I mean, the unlucky guy among 300 passengers, I happen to be next to probably the only one without a mask. This thought came, and then another awareness, thought, again related to A Course in Miracles came. It said, be grateful for the brother next to you. He's your savior. And then somehow this made total sense. I know it sounds silly, it sounds even funny. How come the savior potentially is going to contaminate me with COVID? But no, this is not savior in the sense of, we're saved from COVID, or this is savior. I discovered underlying fears in me I was unaware of. I discovered that I was relying too much on that mask. No problem wearing masks, it's good to wear masks. I would recommend the passengers in those days to wear masks, no doubt. So make no mistake, the masks were helpful, but to think that the mask alone would be my savior, that this would be my protection, that's not so. And I even understood in those moments, again feeling those feelings, now already transmuted, that I felt so clearly that love was my greatest strength. And that I could only feel that love present in that moment, I would be safe. I just knew it. Yes, it happened like this. I didn't catch any COVID, any cold, nothing after that flight. But anyway, what was happening then? After I recognized that he was, in a way, my savior, well, I started discovering so many things about myself in those moments, that I started in my heart, since we had not exchanged words aloud, just in silence. I apologized, and I just said, sorry, my brother, I said really some words about you. I thought ill about you. I didn't recognize you were here to reveal something about myself I wasn't aware of. So thank you. You are really my savior here. I was speaking this just in my heart. I felt so much peace. And then, as the flight ended and we landed, he started looking at me. And when I looked at him, he had such a bright smile. He was kind of so happy to be like that. He started even chatting with me, asking about Brazil, about the weather here. He was so kind. He was so open. And for several minutes we were chatting and we were talking, and the energy was completely changed. So that is just an example of the nature of feelings. They don't need to be analyzed. They simply need to be given space to be felt. And as they are being felt in this spaciousness of our true self, just bringing this loving awareness, this aware presence, that's all we need to do. That's enough. And as we sit with our feelings, they will morph, they will change into other things. And as again I said, the mind and heart are connected, and the feelings will prompt new thoughts. to arise in our mind, thoughts that will help us see ourselves, our situation around us, our life, or whatever is happening out there in the world in a new light. No? Now we listen with the ear of the heart, as I read in this passage here. So that's the core idea of this sharing. And the feelings can open up avenues of understanding, of connection, unforeseen for the mind. I'll give you another example. I lived in India, I said, for 4 years, and during those days, the Dalai Lama, it was in the 1980s and early 2000s, the Dalai Lama was very active. So there were many teachings and talks and some what we would call initiations, like ceremonies, like the Kalachakra Tantric initiation, the Gyatso initiation. I was attending these programs and started feeling closer to him. I spent probably hundreds of hours, like in small groups with the Dalai Lama, and he had this unmistakable, this contagious lightheartedness, this joy of being. It's almost like a childlike innocence, you know. He's very intelligent, of course, and he sometimes goes into very complicated texts from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, but complicated stuff. But the best, the thing that would really touch us was his way of being. So I cherish that, and it helped me tremendously, But what I want to say is not about the Dalai Lama, it's actually about my physical mother. When I left India and I went back to Brazil, after staying 5 years out, 1 year in Nepal and 4 in India, I went back to Brazil and I met my parents. And so as I stayed for some time there, in my parents' home, I got close to my mother and she was just a housewife. I think just, between quotes. She was a presence, a motherly presence, that until that time, I wouldn't really appreciate. When you are young, you take things for granted. And your parents are doing their stuff. And good food, she was cooking, she was doing things. And I wouldn't say in those days that my mother was like a spiritual awakened person. Why? Because my mind would say, she has never studied like deep spirituality. She's just going to church. She's just really... And in those days, I would consider in my mind, a spiritually advanced person, someone who was into deep meditation and deep thought and reading the deep stuff. I was quite wrong. Actually, as I started experiencing my mind, I started feeling her presence. Feeling her presence. Sometimes she would be just chatting with us in the dining table, or preparing food, or cleaning something. And I started feeling the same feeling I was feeling in Dharamsala, Makleodganj, when I was with the Dalai Lama. That childlike innocence, that joy of being, that lightheartedness, that way of being that I learned to cherish in the Dalai Lama right in front of me. And it was just my great mother. She was there in her way of being, sharing to me much more than the books would. Because when you are touched by someone's presence, when you feel the spirit of someone, you see something completely different. Now it was no longer just my mother doing her stuff and chores and cooking or this or that, whatever. I saw this beauty in her. Later my wife also had the opportunity to share some time with her. And she felt the same. She physically passed, but her presence is alive as never before. She's here in my heart as I share these moments that I cherished in her presence. So I recognize that when we can relate to people, when we have a relationship that's not only mind-based, but when you can actually feel people, feel their presence, feel their way of being, something that goes beyond their personality or what they are doing, but the way they are doing whatever they are doing. Then, almost unfailingly, you started discovering that each person is precious in a unique way. And that's why I made a point to make this as a circle, because once you realize our unity, once you start feeling the preciousness, the unique gifts that each person comes to share here in this world, you see the face of Christ in everyone. You hear Divine Mother speaking through each person. And there is no longer that thing of, how many books have you read? How many hours of meditation? Or how many retreats have... Oh, yeah, the mind likes this stuff. Because this is the stuff of comparison, of levels of consciousness, of gradations of wisdom. And when you go to your heart and experience from your presence, the presence of the others, the world looks completely different. I don't mean that we won't see the difficulties people face. I don't mean that we will kind of bypass the people have their difficulties. Sometimes they have their own processing, their own processes that they are going through. Give them space. Give them a space so that whatever still needs to be processed or transmuted in their lives, trust that there is a divine guidance in them as there was in me, in her, in you, in everyone, guiding us sometimes in completely different paths, apparently different paths, but they are going back to the same home. Eventually we start realizing that this is actually a journey without a distance. This is kind of a pathless path. So when the mind lets go of its need for certainty, and the mind is so fearful that it wants to hold something tight, to grasp, to come up with a framework that you can say, oh, this is what I believe, that's the practice I do. This is. When you start letting go of this, you will start discovering that actually there are as many paths as there are people. That we can never judge someone else's path. That we cannot say in truth how wise, how spiritual awakened someone is just by measuring their spirituality by, do you go to church? Do you do this? Do you meditate? Have you read the Bhagavad Gita? Have you read this or that? You cannot. There are people who reach deep awakening through ways that we would become surprised of. Well, you got this out of living like that. And people do. Sometimes out of addiction. Sometimes out of the 12-step program. I have seen beautiful people coming out of deep issues, deep scars. But now you see the gold. You see the diamond. As you know, the diamond and the carbon. That same chemical element, it's all carbon, C. The only difference between a diamond and let's say a piece of charcoal, it's just the inner geometric structure, the arrangement of these bindings between the carbon atoms there, but it's all the same essences there. And nowadays, they can make even artificial diamonds, just applying enough pressure and temperature, even a piece of coal can turn into a diamond. So this is just a metaphor. I'm just saying that it's not for us to judge. How you are this or like that. That's why we are in a circle. And that's why I'm not calling this a presentation. You have as much wisdom as I have. I would be pleased if we have enough time. Probably not today. But I'm sure if we give an opportunity for each of you to speak, we would all be enriched. I would discover how wonderful this person is. How much depth of wisdom that person has. Yeah, that's what I feel today. When we are in this circle, we are peers. We are brothers and sisters. There is no master anymore, at least not in my human experience. Before there were. And it was helpful. Good. Now I can feel that we are all masters. Now we need to give expression to this light that we all have.
I loved your sharing, thank you, and really felt connected to your insights and discoveries as I have shared them as well. One thing I found recently was as I choose love more and more and choose the experience of oneness more and more, when something comes up and something like judgment arises, I make an active choice. It's like, well, do I want to go into this, or do I prefer to stay in love and this experience of unity? And it's been so empowering to know that I can, I don't have to squelch judgment. I can watch it arise, I can accept it, let it go when it goes, but not have to buy into it and be its victim, so to speak, and instead just choose the love. And that's really enhanced and enriched my experience of life.
Thank you so much, Janae, for sharing that, and even for highlighting the importance of not judging even our judgments. So if we detect, if we come to awareness that I'm in a judgmental mode, or I'm kind of, that's okay. Like, we do not make ourselves wrong. Again, it's a matter of spaciousness. It's a matter of simply bringing this presence, this loving awareness to the fact that there is judgment here. That's all we need. So judgment, as you said, is going to help us discover that actually all we want deep down is to be in that place of love, and that perhaps my judgment comes from love. Actually, it's my desire perhaps to see a world in a better way, the wars ending, or someone doing the right stuff. Like deep in our hearts, all we want is that people be at peace, that we can all share and experience love in our lives. Yeah, so thank you.
I have been facing an experience that I had trouble accepting, and I knew that I couldn't accept it, and I sat with it for months, and I couldn't even figure out why I couldn't accept it. And then I had a session with a friend, and she helped me discover a part that was so in my blind spot that I couldn't even realize why it was so difficult. And even now, as I speak about it, I feel energy in my belly. And then this morning, I was with a group of people, and we were exploring, what if we welcome everything? And specifically, what if you welcome something that's very uncomfortable? And the minute I was with just one other person, well, actually there were two other people, and I could feel that with the space that they were giving me, I dropped into a deep, deep grief in 1 minute. And it was like, oh my God, because it felt like it was too much for me to hold alone. But then with companions and brothers and sisters and mighty companions, I could face and feel the depth of how much grief there was. I feel it right now that there's an aspect of my life that I don't feel I'm doing well with. And it's hard not to judge. It has to do with my daughter. And it's hard for me not to judge that I could be better or do better. And so I know that it's serving me, but it feels like I don't have quite enough space to hold it. So it's been going on for half a year, and I have to stay with it and stay with it. And part of me wants to get impatient that it hasn't resolved itself. But I am choosing to know that it's moving. And I could literally feel in this experience today, afterwards, I was in another little group, and I was telling them what was happening, and I said, I feel all this energy stuck in my spine. It feels like there's like a sludge in my spine. And one of the women said, well, let's do a ritual with it. Out of the blue, she says, let's do a ritual with it. I go, what do you mean? She goes, why don't you do a ritual? And I went, okay, is everybody okay with that? It was on Zoom. And everybody said, yeah, let's do that. I'm like, okay. Okay, so I just called in the gods and the heavens and anybody who wanted to come and help. And just with the energy of those people accepting me and not judging me and not going, what the heck? And I was like, oh my God, because I thought, oh, this thing's never gonna move. It moved in like 1 minute because I really fully allowed it. I was like, and I stopped the idea that this isn't gonna move and I can't handle this and I don't know what to do with this and this is too much and blah, 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 blah. I just surrendered and it moved. And I can feel, because there's still energy here, it's not complete, but there's so much more acceptance, and I feel it's because others helped me in a way. This one was a little too deep for me. And I feel more and more what I witness in the work I do is that some of these things are so deep and so painful. I'm working with some trauma victims right now, and it's like they can't do it alone. It's too painful. So I just feel so much hope because I'm seeing more and more people come together and be willing to support each other in these really difficult traumas. So it really, like even now, like right now, the energy I feel is like hope. So thanks for listening. Now look how many of you there are. There's even moving more. Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah.
I also feel moved to share the experience. In Mongolia, I also had some difficulty to relating with my mother and difference of opinion, and somehow my experience become in the belly, in the solar plexus area, and I feel I couldn't transmute it, and the tension is there. And Rodrigo and we had a Course of Love Zoom group each evening, 11 p.m. at that time, because of all groups, many participants. And then that night, specifically, the group was sharing the Course of Love, and love returned to love. And then this part is so amazing because there is a speaking directly to me, right, knowing me where I'm at. And then the voice is talking in the book, the last part of this chapter, saying that any thought still bother you and you cannot transform it, give it to me. And I transmute it, and I return to you, transmuted into love. And therefore, we are connected with our source, our true self, and that spacious love within us. And I'm so grateful you are sharing that your experience. We also share between each one of us.
Speaking to her that night before going to sleep, that yes, there are thoughts, there are feelings that are heavier than what we can really process at that moment. So it's wonderful to also know that there is help. There is help here among us, mighty companions, as the Course in Miracles says. There is help also from those who are present in our lives in a non-physical form. The non-physical beings. We can trust that no prayer goes unanswered. No call for help is ignored. And this was so clear for her that night when, after praying, after really listening to the words in the book, asking before she fell asleep, please help me to deal with the situation she had with her physical mother in those days, like things related to work and the nature of the presence or the Christ in us, this lightness, this lightness, lightheartedness, this innocence in us that can come and bring even the heaviest stuff and make it lighter, bearable, so we can then take it and hold it. Yeah. So thank you, thank each of you for coming here today. Thank you for your presence. No? We really appreciate each of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.